When we speak about motorcycle lubrication, we often speak about engine oils, and if we have a scooter, we speak about gear oils. But there's much more than that, and what is all this? Let's see in this video. For easy demonstration, I'll be showing this entirely on table instead of on a motorcycle. But this is applicable directly onto the motorcycle, and you can do this very easily. So follow along. The first thing is to choose the correct lubricant based on each application. The basic one is oil, and in this case I have mixed 50% engine oil with 50% gear oil. The good thing is this is very inexpensive and it is easily available. The next one is WD-40. This is the jack of all trades but master of none, and also is one of the commonly available in all the automotive stores. Next, we have the chain lube from Motul or any other brand. Finally, we have our grease. And this is not the only one. I have another one, type 2, which I'll be discussing later on in this video. One of the key area where it requires lubrication and can perform at its best is on the levers of your motorcycle. But most services get this thing often ignored, so let me show you how crucial this is. In order to get access to the pivot bolt, start removing the 10mm bolt holding the pivot lock as shown. You can use a ratchet with a 10mm socket or a ring spanner for the same. Once this is done, using a flathead screwdriver, unscrew the pivot bolt and remove it completely out of the master cylinder. Disassemble the levers too so that we can work on it later. Looking at the pivot bolt, you can see how dry it is, and also you can see lot of corrosion that is getting accumulated over time. If this continues and left it unnoticed, over time this can make your lever feel hard and also deteriorate the braking performance. Now in order to fix this, I'm going to use a sandpaper to remove all the corrosions and make an even and smooth surface. Once the pivot bolt surface has been evened out and made sure that the corrosion has been completely removed, I'm using WD-40 to spray this entirely down and wipe it with a clean piece of cloth in order to make sure that all the dirt and grime is being removed from it. Now, in order to lubricate this pivot point, I'm going to use this regular grease, and I'm using this Shell one from a pretty long time. Taking small amount of grease and applying it on the pivot bolt, spread it out evenly and take out the excess if required. Making sure that the grease is applied only a thin layer and not excess. Applying excess grease can collect dirt and grime which can actually ruin the pivot bolt than protecting it against the corrosion and giving a smooth play. Once the pivot bolt is evenly coated with grease, let's keep this aside. Now looking into the lever, you can see some dirt and grime collected onto the lever itself, so this needs to be cleaned with WD-40. Spray it down and wipe it with a microfiber cloth. Repeat the same process of cleaning onto the master cylinder's locking point too as shown. Now apply thin layer of grease onto the mounting point of the master cylinder, and the leftover grease on your hand has to be applied on a thin layer basis onto the lever's point. Assemble the lever back onto the master cylinder and install the pivot bolt as shown. Tighten it with a flathead screwdriver and lock it in place using the 10mm bolt which has been provided. With this, you have successfully lubricated your brake lever and restored its maximum potential successfully. Now the similar process is applicable on the clutch lever too, and it's just a matter of disassembling the cable which is attached to the clutch lever. Just sliding opening the boot and disassemble the clutch cable. I'll speak about lubricating the clutch cable in the later part of the video. Let's now look at only the clutch yoke and the lever itself. The entire process remains the same except removing this clutch sensor switch. It is held by two screws. Just undo it and remove the clutch sensor switch out of the clutch yoke. I'll speak about lubricating this in later part, and the rest of the process of lubricating this clutch yoke and the lever is similar to how we did with the brake lever. Removing the pivot bolt completely out and using a sandpaper sand the pivot bolt to make it free from corrosions, apply thin layer of grease and install it back onto the clutch yoke with the lever. One thing to make out here is, I have seen people using lot of grease applied externally onto the clutch yoke, thinking that this can lubricate the clutch unit, but in fact this can collect lot of dirt and grime, turning out into a sludge. And this is a sludge buildup that you can see. So avoid using grease directly from external surface, and if you want to really lubricate it, do it in this way. Now cleaning all the levers and the pivot points, assemble everything back together. Now for lubricating the clutch sensor switch and restoring its performance is as simple as spraying some WD-40 and rocking it forward and backward to remove any corrosion that has been formed into the electrical contacts. Once it's done, install back the clutch sensor switch and tighten both the screws which you have removed. With this, you have successfully lubricated your clutch lever. Now let's look at the cables itself. I'm demonstrating this in the clutch cable, but this is applicable for your accelerator cable too, and you can follow along the same process. Usually the modern cables have something called as nylon sleeve, which doesn't usually require any sort of lubrication and also make sure that the cable moves freely with the minimum friction. But old cables can wear out and this nylon sleeve actually can deteriorate over time. So lubricating this does not harm, and if your cable is in pretty old and broken condition, consider replacing it, and that would be a smart decision. Now, in order to lubricate these cables, you need a set of supplies. Starting with a plastic bag, you can use any plastic bag or cover, something similar that I'm showing here. I'm going to cut a corner with a pair of scissors as shown in the video. Once this is done, flip the cover entirely and pass the cable through the flip surface, something like this. Now using a rubber band, secure the plastic cover onto the cable as shown in the video. Now if your cable has a dust boot, like in this case, is the right time to remove it. Now flip the entire cover back, making it something like a funnel, and you can use this as it is, or you can even cut it to make it smaller. Now speaking of lubricant itself, many think WD-40 can be used as a lubricant, and yes, it can be used for some extent, but cables which has nylon sleeves, using WD-40 on them can deteriorate it and can damage the inner lining, which can increase the friction and damage the cables. Now the next option would be using a lube like the chain lube itself or something similar to this. But the best option is to use our good old oil, and in this case a 50-50 mix of gear oil with engine oil. I'll be using this as this is very cheap and does the job. Pouring the lubricating oil that we prepared into the funnel that we created. Once enough level of oil is reached, just enough to reach the entrance of the cable, stroke the cable itself a couple of times, making sure that you pump the oil inside the cable and lubricate it. After a couple of minutes, you can see the oil seeping out from the other side, and gravity does its job. Once you start seeing the oil from the other side, you have successfully lubricated your cables and you can install everything back. Now, bearings. Specifically speaking about wheel bearings. After riding your motorcycle for around 20 to 30,000 kilometers, your wheel bearings need a replacement. However, for each service, it is the right thing to check your wheel bearings to ensure that it has enough grease. Now there are a set of people who are against greasing the bearings, and there are people who does this. At the end of the day, the decision is up to you. Now if you have decided to grease your bearings, what grease to use? Not a regular grease, that wouldn't work. The primary reason being, these regular grease doesn't withstand high temperatures and high pressure, where the motorcycle bearings can spin in a higher RPM, which demands it to withstand high heat which get produced due to friction. Now something for this type of application, we need a type of grease which can withstand high heat and pressure, and for that we have lithium grease. This particular type of grease has a higher life, and also compared to the regular grease, it can withstand high operating temperatures up to 120 degrees. And not only that, this grease is superior in terms of preventing rust and oxidation inside the wheel bearings. Just take sufficient amount of lithium grease as shown and start filling it inside the bearing after cleaning it thoroughly using some WD-40. Now while it's on your wheel, it has to be applied something similar to this. Once this is done, apply some lithium grease onto your axle too. Once this is done, your motorcycle wheel bearing is restored and is ready to roll out in a smooth ride. And thanks to lithium based grease, it can actually withstand high temperature and pressure and can give you a smoother ride, and due to less friction, it can actually increase your fuel efficiency up to some extent. Now other thing to speak on lubrication is, using WD-40 to lubricate all the moving or pivot points. Starting with your foot pegs, using WD-40 to lubricate it, and once it is thoroughly lubricated, make sure that you wipe off the excess lube using a microfiber cloth to prevent collection of dirt and grime formation. Now the same set of lubrication is applicable to your side and the main stand too. As with everything, apply it and then wipe it off using a microfiber cloth where you see the excess. Did you know WD-40 is a good water repellent? Yes, you can use WD-40 onto your control switch to displace any moisture and also prevent any corrosion formation in future. This can also lubricate your pivot points of your control switch for a smoother operation. Don't forget to wipe off the excess to avoid any greasiness while you operate the switch. Using WD-40 onto your lock set of your tank can actually make it work smoother and prevent any corrosion and also minimize wear and tear. You can also use the same onto your main lock set too. This not only prevents corrosion but also makes the electrical contact intact and also prevents any future corrosion. With this, that's all I have to speak on lubricating your motorcycle other than engine oils and other lubricants. Now, if you find this video informative enough and if you people like this video, do consider subscribing to Archeonics and follow me on Instagram for more interesting content.